pages 86-87. Marty goes in, notices a nerd at the counter reading comics and eating Rice Krispies. Oh. I know who this nerd is, it's his dad. This is gonna be so great. Makes the phone call, no answer, so he tears out the page from the phone book and asks the counterman, that's what the book calls him, about the address. Counterman asks him if he's gonna order something, and Marty orders his dab.
You'll get that later.
The dude sighs, so Marty orders his Pepsi free, and what happens next is amazing.
Kid, the counterman said, making no attempt to hide his growing irritation, if you want a Pepsi, you gotta pay for it. Am I slow? Marty thought.
Ha ha ha, yep, that is awesome. So Marty asks for something without sugar in it, gets a cup of water and a cup of black coffee. Marty did not enjoy black coffee. The book tells us, and I kinda hope it's supposed to be an exact quote of what Marty's thinking to himself in the third person at this moment. Anyway, instead of asking for something without sugar in it and leaving it at that, as in the movie, book Marty asks for some sweet and low. Wait, are we all aware of what sweet and low is? Well heck, the best writers never take any chances.
Tell me what sweet and low is, the counterman said, forcing patience into his voice. It's an artificial sugar substitute with no calories, Marty said. We don't have anything like that. The Middle Ages, Marty thought.
Thanks Marty. Counterman wants to get paid. Marty pulls out a 20. Counterman says he can't break that and asks him where he got a $20 bill anyway, and Marty says,
I'm a spoiled rich kid, new in town.
Because the alternative would be to tell him he's a drug dealer. Then suddenly things get awesome because someone barges into the store and calls out,
Hey McFly!
Yes. Finally, who could it be?
4 young fellows of about 17 were moving from the entrance of the shop towards the nerdy boy several stools away. The face of the leader looked vaguely familiar. The beady eyes, lips curled into a sneer and beefy jaw presented tantalizing clues, but Marty couldn't solve the puzzle.
Book Marty, still slow, page 89-90. Remember that super annoying guy in grade 3 or 4, who just discovered that language could be used literally? Well, in this book, Biff's that guy.
Hi, Biff, how's it going? Young George McFly asked, trying to sound casual but not carrying it off very well. His voice had a distinctly subservient tone. What do you mean, it? Biff shot back as his cohorts laughed. What's it? That's just an expression, George muttered. I just wanted to make sure everything was all right with you. Everything? Biff repeated. You're interested in everything about me? That's a lot. You mean, you're interested in what I had for breakfast, whether I burped afterward or not?
It goes on. This sort of fake cleverness has always been annoying to me, and it's always the same tired expressions that are exploited, or, failing that, it's always the same stupid artificial prepositional attachment ambiguity, so I'm not sad to see they cut the whole thing entirely. Eventually Biff asks for his homework and George doesn't have it, and yes, this scene from the movie is in the book. Phew, I'm glad. Let's watch it again. The book describes Biff's friend's laughter as
emulating Pavlov's dog perfectly.
Ever read writing so clunky it makes you actually wince? Now you have, and as Marty watches he sighs and shakes his head and thinks,
it was almost too painful to watch. This beginning of a 30-year torture test which has further continued to fail.
And so apparently this is the very first time Biff ever bullied George? I guess. You guys, it feels kinda weird to care about how a book is written when the author clearly didn't. Anyway, get ready for mood whiplash because at this point Biff notices Marty and says,
What are you looking at, butthead?
And yes, it's so good. I'd been told this was an on-the-set improvisation, but nope. Biff called Marty a butthead and I couldn't be happier. Dallies, updated. Butthead count, 1. Doc count, 2, unchanged, but still higher than in the vast majority of movies or books produced by humanity. Anyway, book Biff calls him a butthead and then leaves it at that. which means we don't get this scene.
Hey, Biff, get hold of this guy's life preserver. Dort thinks he's gonna drown. Yeah.
We also don't get it because Book Marty's all about the green shoes instead of the sweet puffy vests. I like this in the movie because George joins in with the laughter in this quiet, sad, desperate way, and it's a great moment that helps describe the character to us really quickly. Instead we jump right to where George promises to run the homework over first thing tomorrow morning and Biff does their
Oh, McFly, your shoes untied!
thing, only it continues afterwards with this frankly baffling passage.
Fell for it again, didn't you, McFly? Biff laughed. Boy, if anyone wanted to cold cock you, they wouldn't have any trouble. I guess not, George murmured.
Okay. So to help out our mutual confusion/unfamiliarity with old man slang, I looked up cold cock on Urban Dictionary and it can mean one of two things. To beat up a male, and totally knock him out. The act of building a giant snow penis in the front of a home unbeknownst to the homeowner. This act can be done to the homes of friends, enemies, or strangers alike. Nothing says hello neighbor like a frigid man dick saluting strong in the front of one's dwelling. I don't think there's anything else I could possibly add here. Page 91. What a great scene, and then George said.
Yeah, who are you?
And then Goldie Wilson jumps in and tells George not to let those boys push him around. Surprise. Book Marty messes it up. George and Marty watched Biff go.
I can't believe it, Marty said finally. You're a young George McFly.
And George is all.
Of course I'm young.
And then Book Marty decides to show off. For some reason. And then the whole page is wasted with Book Marty showing off the things he knows, and it had better be for his own personal amusement because it's most def not for ours.
Your birthday's August 18th and your mother's name is Sylvia, right? George shook his head, not because the information was wrong but because he was amazed. Had the fellow gotten hold of school files or looked through his wallet?
Marty goes on, letting George know that he knows that George's father enlisted in World War I as a 16-year-old, went to France, got found out as being too young, and was shipped back without firing a shot. In response,
George nearly choked on his Pepsi. Someone could have gleaned the other information by looking at a questionnaire, but the story about his dad was inside family material. How had this young man found out? George replied. That's all true. How did you find out and who are you? Having enjoyed amazing and confounding the young George McFly, Marty suddenly realized he had no plausible answer to the question.
Dear Book Marty. Hey, listen. We're all wondering why you're being so incredibly dumb. Yours sincerely, everyone ever.